Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am so honored to have Adrienne Enns with us. Adrienne is amazing. She has a book that I found in the Junction in Toronto called Intentional Days. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but what a breath of fresh air. So let me share a little bit about Adrienne with you. She's the founder of May You Know Joy, Inc. And we all know we need more joy in our lives right now. Her mission is to inspire our most intentional living through products, conversations, and experiences. She's the author of Intentional Days, as I mentioned, and has a beautifully curated subscription membership with the same name. She's the host of the Intention Sessions podcast and is perhaps best known for her popular intention card decks that are available and well-loved worldwide. So, Adrienne, thank you again so much for joining me today. I'm thrilled to have you here and spread some joy in the world.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So good. So let's jump right in. Let's really just get into, a little bit more about you. You've had this great journey. Just want to share with our audience. Here is her book, Intentional Days, which when I picked it up, I couldn't stop reading it. I am in love with it, and I love the inspiration that it shares. But, let's talk about, maybe you can share with the audience, what was that pivotal moment when you knew the impact of creating your life on purpose was?
You know what? I think that I was thinking about this. I think that there were two, so I will be brief, but I think there was a moment where I was in my bedroom one morning getting ready for work. I was in the corporate world, zipping up that pencil skirt, and, like, kids are screaming, there's noises going on. I'm like already into my day and stressed out about it. Mm-hmm. And I remember looking out the window that morning and I was like, is this it? Like, is this, not that I wasn't happy, but I was really, like, in hindsight, overextended. And I was like, am I just going to go through this hamster wheel for the next, 20 years? Fast forward to, I had a serious problem with alcoholism. So I wasn't handling this stress well. I didn't know how to handle the stress. I didn't know how to handle the expectations. I didn't know how to handle my feelings around all of this. And all I knew was that numbing out made it temporarily better, but infinitely worse. So, when I got to my lowest point, I was like, I just have to turn this around. And as I was recovering, I had this woman tell me that she didn't believe it when people said that they were happy. And it was that moment that I was like, well, first of all, I don't really want your help because this is not what I want to I want to hitch my ride to.
Not your model.
Not my model. And I was just like, you know what? While I am on this planet, I want to choose how I'm going to show up. And if I'm going to all of this work to turn my life around, I want it to be meaningful. I want it to be fulfilling, and I want it to be joyful. So that was a moment where I was so angry with her and I was in tears, but something inside me erupted and I was like, no, we're going to do this differently than I'd been taught, differently than what had been modeled for me. And that's what set the course for my professional work, but it's just how I live my life now.
Wow, that's beautiful. And what courage. Boy, that took a lot of courage. First of all, even to step back and recognize, and thank you for sharing that, because sometimes we do numb ourselves in lots of different ways, whether it's alcohol, food, drugs, excessive exercise. Like, there's lots of different ways that we do that. And so thank you for sharing that. And it sounds like even though she wasn't your model, she was the impetus of that turning point for you. So she was meant to be there to just give you that little nudge. So well done.
Yeah, she was a huge, catalyst. And some people have said that to me, like, I can't believe she said that to you. And I mean, sometimes it is these uncomfortable situations that teach us the most. So those lessons, sink in deep and we're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. Well done. So when you think about today's environment, we have a lot of people who are finding it difficult to stop the noise, and they're having struggles even finding that happiness or the joy factor. And it's so important that we are fueling ourselves, because to your point, we don't want to spend the next 20 years, not being happy and not being present in what's happening right now. It's because I find a lot of the people I'm talking to, a lot of my clients, there's a lot of uncertainty and wait and see what happens, like even postponing conversations. And that that makes me, that makes me unhappy because I'm a connector and love people. So what are 3 things that you would share with our audience that they can do to bring more of that joy to their life?
Well, the first thing I want to tell them is that it's here. Do you know what I mean? It's within you all the time. And it sounds hokey, but like we have to be willing to access it. So my first piece of advice would be to find a way to really be present, to really be in this moment. So not in the past, not in all those things that have happened. If you need to go get help to clear that out, go get the help. And not in the future. Yeah, having arguments in your head or what have you. Like in this moment, how do I feel? What is going on around me? And then the second part of that is then in this moment, what's the next best thing I can do? So connecting to joy doesn't mean being happy all the time, but we can always connect to it, right? So what's going to make you feel good right now? Is it hydrating yourself? Is it nourishing your body? Is it listening to your favorite song? Is it calling a friend? Is it going for a walk? Like it doesn't have to be put off. So it's doing it all the time consistently, because it's these consistent things that we do all the time that add up. Yeah. And I think the last thing is to be open to it, because I've talked to thousands of people since I started doing this work, and I've heard a lot of people say like, I don't know what this feels like, or I don't feel worth it, or I'm going to put it off until I have that relationship, or I retire. And now is the time. If anything, this time has taught us how uncertain things are, how fragile things are. So I would encourage everyone watching to like seize the moment. And if you want to, I'd be open to it, because sometimes receiving it, like we want things and then we put up all the barriers,
100%.
all of these reasons. So it's a very human thing to do. I do it myself, but it's counterproductive.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said there. So important. Absolutely. That we're even seeing the small things, right? Because we get, like, one of the things that I talk a lot about with my clients is celebrating the little things. Like, even if it's the book that's been sitting on the shelf for, 2 months and you haven't had time to read it, celebrate those successes. And there is no guarantee for the future. So to your point, it's why create those stories, because you're manifesting it to happen when you create those stories.
Yes.
And so it's really, I love that what you said is being present now. And COVID has, I think, helped. I know for myself too, being more conscious, as a leader, and leader being leader of your life, it certainly can shift, the joy that you bring in, because you do have to believe you're worth it to receive it. And I love that. So well done. Thank you.
Awesome.
So as I've said, I love intentional days, and especially the mantra that you put in the very beginning. Like, I read that every day. I love it. So because we were talking about being present. So what are some of the things that you do to be present in the now and to honor yourself, but also what I love that you wrote in there is about the radiance that you project out to the world, because there is that dominoes effect. When you're compassionate with yourself, then it's exponential, right? But what are some of the things that you do so it extends to others?
Well, there's so many things that we can do. What I do personally, and what I recommend to the people that I work with, is like, I just think how you start your morning really, really matters. So instead of grabbing for that phone and just like diving into the stress of things, one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly, just really being present. Grateful for this morning. Like, it just sounds so simple, but this gratitude and this being intentional, it rewires your brain. We have this fight or flight response that can get so hypersensitive. So we need to work to calm that so that we can respond. So I set an intention every morning. Sometimes I do pull a card, I journal, I practice yoga, but I also tell people, like, even if you have 1 minute, you know, just to connect with yourself and think, you know, what's going to happen today? Like, how do I want to show up? Maybe I want to show up from a place of love or a place of kindness or a place of gratitude, like just choosing how you want to show up, because otherwise this world's just going to take you into its frenzy and whip you around. So when you're very grounded and connected, you can respond instead of reacting. So as I mentioned earlier, like I do just have things around me, like my screensaver on my phone grounds me. You know, I'll wear a piece of jewelry that grounds me. I take walks, I take breaks, I take time. So it's just, I think, really noticing when we get on that autopilot and when we get stressed, and we can do just as much a little bit slower, you know, and really just, I think it's also just being on our own side. Like that's what I learned. Like I was,
Yay!
yeah, like so unkind to myself. So now I'm just like, okay, Adrienne, like, you know, sometimes I have boundless energy and I'm creating big things. And other days I'm like, okay, what are just 3 things you're going to do today? And then what will help you like take care of yourself? Because when you're taking care of yourself, that's, to your point, getting back to that radiance piece. Like when I feel good, when the people listening or watching feel good, that's when we can radiate that out and give it in a genuine way. Because I've also talked to a lot of women who overgive to depletion, and then it's coming from a place of obligation and resentment. So that's also very self-destructive and not helpful. So when we take care of this, then we can give in an authentic way and also set appropriate boundaries, which I'm sure you also talked about.
Well, and I love that because it's so easy, and we're all guilty of it. Like, you know, even when we started the conversation, you were talking about coming from the corporate world, and, you know, we give, even unknowingly, sometimes we give so much to others and we make ourselves last, but nobody else really, they're not getting nourished from us when we're not nourishing ourselves first. And so it is so important that, you know, we're taking that time and being compassionate. And, you know, I'll say, even for myself, I used to do things and I would say, oh my God, why'd you do that? You're so stupid. And then it was like, oh my God, I would never say that to one of my friends. Why would I ever say that to myself?
Yes.
And so you become more conscious about what you're fueling into yourself, and people will they will always take
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And to your point also, like it's also a practice, right?
Yes.
Like this isn't about being perfect. It's not about like 5 steps and I'm there.
Yes, exactly.
It's a way of living and being in the world and showing up. And sometimes it's messy and sometimes you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. You know, and we get angry and frustrated. Like this is the human experience, but to your point, it's that awareness of being like, okay, like how do I center myself, you know? And for everybody watching or listening, it'll be different, but the more you do it, it becomes just part of what you do, you know? Like, so now it's very organic for me to do that, where, you know, 8 some years ago, never did it.
Yes, exactly. And I think our society, like, we have all these things that make us feel like, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, that everybody else is pulling at us, and we think, oh, we have to be putting the kids in all these activities, and we have to be, you know, we have to be the perfect parent, and we have to be, you know, the career woman, and we have to do this and this and this. And there's only so much that you can actually put out into the world. And so it is, I mean, I guess the one big message, you know, you're sharing here is the importance of nourishing yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, and it's also like, where does it all come from, right? Like if we're doing it for other people, you know, we're going to get depleted and we're going to have stress, and that creates disease. and it's not healthy. But if we are taking care of ourselves, eating right, moving properly, slowing down, taking time to rest, taking time to have fun, then it's almost like you can still do all of these things, but from a different place. Like, so when I drive my kids to activities, I'm like, let's talk. Let's turn on music that we both like. Like, let's be in this moment together.
Lovely.
And enjoy it. So life can still be very fulfilling, and it might look the same to other people looking in,
Yeah.
but it's where it's springing from in you, like fulfilling versus depleting.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
So I actually, one of the things I do in my coaching business is I do a energy leadership assessment. And that is a big focus in it is, when things are going normal, you put out a lot of anabolic energy. And so it's positive. So to your point, it's the lens that's, very nurturing. But when we tend to get stressed, then it's more catabolic. And so it's depleting. And so it's consciously shifting that lens that you're talking about, like being very aware. So when you have those moments, how do you make that moment count and make it, an experience that is rewarding for everybody, not something that's dreaded or negative.
Totally. Into that, it's better to do it often.
Yes.
For a little amount of time, like it's great if you can go on that retreat once a year or whatever you're doing. But I also talk to a lot of people, and maybe you do too, or like, I just don't have time, or whatever the reason. And I'm like, well, take a minute, because first of all, you create time. And I would argue that your time is worth it.
Yes. Me too.
And then it absolutely adds up. And it's also what is energizing and nourishing to you. Like, I've talked to a lot of people who are also like, they don't know. And it's like, that's okay. But then start somewhere, like be curious, like go for a walk and just see, like, does that feel good to me or not? If it does, great. If it doesn't, choose something else, because it's not a one size fits all, and it can change throughout our lives. So to also not know is normal, because it's kind of been pulled out of us, or we see all these ads or people like that makes them happy, but it might not make you happy.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautifully said. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, the time piece, I think that's so important, because I hear that a lot as well, that people say, oh, I just don't have time. And so I love how you describe that, even if it's like a minute, something to create that consistent practice so that you're taking care of you. And it doesn't have to require, it's not hours and hours of, setting aside time. It should be part of. So even the example you just shared about when you take your kids to activities, like finding the joy in that with, whether it's music or the conversation, or, hey, look at the trees that are changing right now. Like,
Yeah.
So that's a great shift in perspective, because any of us should be able to do that and make it part of our everyday seeing, what are we grateful for, and how can we shift that lens?
Yeah, I think we get so used to our mind just racing, and being in the past or the future with all of these things. Also, when we're in the future, like things that might never happen, creating stressful situations. So yeah, just really pulling ourselves back. And it sounds so simple, but I just tell people all the time, like, you got to do it. Like, just do it.
Well, and you give lots of great examples in your book, Intentional Days. Like this morning, I was reading Being, and I was absorbing it, and I'm like, what, even that, it doesn't take long. Like every day, or once in the morning, once in the evening, you read that and you just absorb, that moment of being, and it keeps you. I think that helps. I know for myself, like that helps to keep me grounded and very present in the moment. But so many beautiful things to be grateful for. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. And that's why I created that, because I had tools like that really helped me. And it gave me a different way of thinking, you know, so I could read it in the morning. It was all brand new to me, but I like these like just simple, accessible things that people can do anytime, anywhere, because you don't know when you're going to need it.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't know. And it's easy to close your eyes for a moment and just absorb, like, you know, whatever that might look like. Would you mind if I just, like, if I read
I love it. Yeah, go.
okay, awesome. So, and then this is important for our audience, just to give you a flavor of, you know, just how Adrienne is modeling what she's saying. Not like her woman who gave her that little prompt, but she says, I honor the beauty within me and all around me, because that's very affirming. And what she says about beauty is, I close my eyes and feel the beauty within and all around me. It has always been here in this raw and authentic state. Like a diamond, I am a multifaceted divine entity created by pressure, tension, and stress. I do not listen to outside judgments, definitions, or demands on my appearance. I know that beauty is in the essence of my being. I access that place tenderly with love and kindness. I have deep gratitude and unlimited acceptance. It is from this core of my being that I radiate myself to the world. My eyes sparkle, I smile, I see beauty in all things, in the goodness and even in the painful parts. I see beauty within me, and I see beauty everywhere. Like that to me, like my heart, I get goosebumps. So it's such a beautiful way to remind yourself, like having something like that first thing in the morning, how worthy you are and how beautiful you are, you know, inside and outside. And, you know, you have a choice of how to see the world. And I love how you've created the message so that we see the beauty. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And that one, I love that you picked that specifically, because there's also a beauty card in May You Know Joy deck. And I've seen so many women pull it. And, you know, like tears will come up, or they're like, that's not for, like, there's this tendency for us to go to the punitive and be hard on ourselves. And it's one lesson that I learned is like, you know, it's not all the creams and stuff. It's like, how do you feel? Like, so there is just such incredible beauty in the rawness, like of us just showing up and trying our best and loving ourselves no matter what. And that's beautiful. And then when we can feel that, we can also see the beauty in other people and not be so harsh or angry or quick to judge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. A lot about acceptance.
Yes.
Yes. Lovely. So, Adrienne, I know we're getting close to the end of our time together here, but I know that there's things that you would love to share. So if you could go back and be your younger self and know what you know now, what would you share with yourself?
That's a big question. It's interesting because on one hand, I don't really regret anything because I learned so much from it. Do you know what I mean? So I would offer what I'm trying to teach my kids from my mistakes is I just always want to teach them, or what I would say to myself is like, just really like be who you are. And I just always want them to be transparent and open and connected to their feelings, just really honest, and just try, like, to always be learning. Like, it's not about being perfect, it's about showing up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you. And great advice, right? Because, you know, we have a choice as to how we show up. And, you know, if you're open and transparent and learning, you know, the world is completely open to what we can experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. You are such a joy.
Thanks for having me.
And audience, you know, if you'll give us a minute, we're going to take a little break and then we'll come back for our live Q&A, because I know you will have lots of questions for Adrienne, and we appreciate you sticking around and asking those questions. And Adrienne, your website is May You Know Joy. Is that correct? Yes, so you can check out more about Adrienne on her website. She mentioned the cards, her book, definitely worth the read and practice, because it's not just reading, it is practice. So I want to stress that part. And Adrienne, again, thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning and your wisdom and the journey that you've taken and how you've completely, moved into a very purposeful and intentional life, and sharing those secrets with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.